As we begin to turn around over the New River Tunnel at this time, one of our first sites will be over to your right-hand side of its original location. The house was built in 1901. It was one of two houses used as an overnight station and trading post with the Seminole housing areas in the whole entire city. Homes in these sections today are not too affordable anymore, $3 to $4 million typically to get you in a fixer-upper on the New River. A nicer home works its way to prices ranging from $8 to $10 million. To this day, the people in the homes around us still refer to them as Going back ahead of us and over to our left-hand shoreline, going to be looking for a bright tangerine orange colored house with our old house, much bigger by the way, for $18.5 million. And we'll show you the old house. It's actually right around the corner, pointed out to you in just a few short moments. Well, at this time, we'll be heading down into a section of the river called Tarpon Bend. This is certainly one of the sharper turns on the New River. It's a notoriously difficult turn for big boats to negotiate through. Tarpon Bend got its name for the locals in the 1920s when at that time tarpon gamed fish. These are really large fish. They can grow to be over 6 feet in length and weigh as much as about 350 pounds actually was the biggest one ever caught. There were It's a bronze statue of 3 dolphins breaking the surface of the water. Take a look at the statue. You might be thinking something like dolphins, and I tell you, the owner of the house, a Mr. H. Wayne Heisinger, used to own the Miami Dolphins football team. He recently sold the Dolphins for $1.6 billion, so he's no longer the owner of the team, but the statue is from the time he was full owner. Now, Mr. Wayne Heisinger bought this huge, colorful house a few years ago for $18.5 million. I will confess, purchasing the home confused local residents at the time. One of my favorite expressions is old habits die hard, and in this case, he used to just build things constantly, so his house is in a perpetual state of construction and renovations, like the Winchester house. It's never going to be done. Here's another one called Portalette, the Porta Potty Company. Sell porta potties, and you'd be aware of one thing: your business doesn't smell good. He knows this, has a sense of humor. His boats are called Business Stinks, name of course for house with a rocky seawall. He's the retired chief financial officer of a big chain of department stores. They start with the letter K. Belleville, Michigan. He is actually the head of a company that manufactures chassis for a major American automaker, and a chassis, of course, is the basic building block of a car. It's like a foundation for a house. We're assuming that's going to be his winter vacation home. In other words, he's only going to live there when the snow starts falling in Michigan, which is technically still a resident. He does not live in the house with the green stripe any longer. 6 months after Lee moved in, Lee and his wife Karen went into the midst of a very expensive divorce. Lee's been selling the house ever since to pay for a very expensive divorce settlement. Lost it in the house, and again, we'll tell you more about that later. This time we're going to be leaving the New River behind us. We are down what this guy did. I was guessing he was a custom house builder from California, but I don't really know. Then we found out recently he owns racehorses, so maybe putting the two together, maybe he builds custom houses for racehorses. You know, it's kind of it's a small kind of a niche market. Somewhat resemble the White House in Washington, D.C. The view here at this house is obviously much better than the one looking down Pennsylvania Avenue. The palm trees that encircle the home are called royal palms, an expensive type of per foot of height of tree makes the taller trees worth about $10,000 to $15,000 a tree. It might sound like a lot of money for you or me to spend on a tree, but if you lived in a house like that, this would be for sale for $55 to a more reasonable $28.5 million. The owner's name is James L. Hutchings, who invented a variety of tools and machines which were later used by GM to install air conditioning on their cars. Back when they used to use his patented process, they used to pay him royalties, and that's how the guy made a lot of his money. House with the twin white. They manufactured Alka-Seltzer. Family is responsible for getting rid of all the headaches that are caused by their neighbors' products just up the street. Hotel tower, that is the Fort Lauderdale Hilton Marina Resort. formerly known as the Marriott Marina Resort Complex and formerly owned by our good friend, local billionaire Wayne Huizinga. Mr. Huizinga sold the big hotel to a steel dock in the marina. They started working on the round hotel tower. Its construction started in '64 and was completed back in 1967. When building the round hotel tower, the original developers geared things about its design and operation to their famous Phillips 60 drink, $6.66. The average age of the clientele in the bar. Bar's been closed for 4 years now, but when the bar was lobster and caviar, Grey Goose, Bloody Marys, all you can drink, and expensive champagne, mostly Cove, poured like it's water. They said their brunch is not cheap at $65 per person. We realize we have at least 2 busloads from the cruise ships out here today. It's going to be an all-celebrity day here on the Curie Peak. We got both the Solstice, of course, the 2 cruise ships out here today, the Solstice and the other one, which I'm sure somebody's going to the Celebrity Eclipse, the brand new Solstice class ship. They built it at Meyer Werft in Papenburg, Germany. When they built the Solstice about 3 years ago, the ship basically, the way again, just give you some stats for the winter time here in the months between November and April, we're going to host approximately 55 different cruise ships. They will carry 4 million passengers, 2,400 different cruises for approximately 17 different cruise lines. World's busiest cruise port in all categories across the board. This entire port is a man-made seaport. To create this port, they used an existing body of water which was called Lake Mabel. Lake Mabel was a very wide and shallow section of Florida's East Coast Canal system. They perfected the technology behind remote detonations back in 1928. Later on that same first thing in the morning, I walk off the ship here. Have a complimentary glass of fresh squeezed orange. Thought that the name of the port was not professional enough sounding. They held a name-changing contest. The winning entry was Port Everglades. The name is very confusing today because we're so far from the Everglades, the port as we know it today. In other words, the Everglades were at Interstate 95. Thanks to commercial development, the name doesn't make as much sense as it once did. Straddling the line here because Hollywood is to your right and then Fort Lauderdale is to your left, and that's kind of like census boundaries. That's the corporate limits of the city. It has no color. It's just white with white trim. The other buildings, they got like green glass or the blue or green, sticking out further than the other structures, and that gives the people protective views on 3 sides, 270 degrees. He won't be back here until about, well, usually snowbirds come back after Halloween, right?
Really?
How's it, spring break already?
Catch me if you can.
That's like every spring break already? Isn't it a little early for that? It's never too early for spring break. Another